to the Infield Shadow Podcast. I am Tyler Ross, your host. Joining me, as always, is the other host of this show, Eric Henderson. What up, Eric?
What's up, Tyler?
Hey, not too much. Our list of eliminated teams has grown.
Oh, yeah, it has.
October is looming around, and as Scott Hansen on NFL Red Zone would say, we're in the witching hour of teams making the playoffs or not.
Is that what he's saying?
He does. Well, I'm crossing my
It's-
sports, but every time,
Giving it a spooky vibe. I like it.
yeah, every time the 1 p.m. games get to like the fourth quarter, he's like, "We're now in the witching hour, where wins become losses." It's very fun. I think that joke will be for a quarter of the people that listen to this. Anyway, but baseball is what this podcast is about.
Not witches.
Not witches. I know we're getting close to Halloween, but we're not talking about trick or treating.
That's right.
Anyway, so today's going to be kind of a different little special episode. We've been doing these like specific subject episodes, and this one is no different. This one we are going to be talking about the automated balls and strikes system that they are creeping up on using in the major leagues. We're going to talk about where it's being used, a little bit of the science behind it, and what some of the players and managers are saying about it. So before we get into that, Eric, anything else you want to talk about with the season going on right now?
I think it's very entertaining. We got a 4-way tie for the National League wild card.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty hot. I really have not been paying attention to the American League currently, except for the Orioles. Did they clinch? Is that the first time they've clinched a playoff appearance in 10 years or something like that?
That's a
very
great
exciting.
question. I don't know, but I know they've clinched. Just our quick list. The Braves have clinched, and so have the Dodgers.
The Dodgers. Yeah, the Dodgers are looking pretty good.
They're getting hot at the right time. We talked about that last episode, but
They
I
really
definitely
are.
believe that. So,
But yeah, no, I got my eyes on the National League wild card race. I still have a horse in this. Unfortunately, the Cubs have been losing when they cannot lose. Where they currently stand, their elimination number is 7, and they are 6 games behind first place, so they can lose 1 game for the rest of the year if they want the division.
oh no.
And so it's there. The heat is on in Chicago. And so they got swept by the Diamondbacks, which was the team directly behind them in the wild card race. So, and they also lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies, who they're statistically eliminated from next year's World Series at this point. So, I think it's great. I mean, I've been watching a lot of games lately, just tuning into whoever's hot, whatever's on at the moment. And so I think the end of this season has come down to be very fun, very entertaining. So we'll see how it goes. But Schwarber hit a 500-foot home run yesterday.
Bomb. Absolute
Huge
bomb.
Yeah, out of the stadium, I think, in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's a hot matchup, Philly versus the Braves. This is the second time they've played each other in the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
No, I think it's fun. I think the season's winding down. I think it's a pretty good year. Not going to lie. When you look at the whole year, I think it's been pretty entertaining.
It's been good. And, we get to see a little Shohei drama at the end of the season. We won't get too deep into that. But, I'm excited to see as soon as the season ends kind of how that plays out, with his injury happening and so on.
It sounds like Mike Trout might get traded.
Yeah, so. We'll see what happens. You might as well wholesale at this point.
Right. We could do a whole separate episode of what the fuck is going on in the Angels organization.
Yeah, unbelievable.
So, but no, I think it's good. And to be honest, I'm very curious about what you have to say about this automated strike zones, because I don't know much other than it sounds like it might need to be needed at this point, because I've seen I've seen a lot of important moments get thrown by poor calls lately. So
well, and so to start jumping into that, I tried to focus mostly on the broader picture. Some specifics I thought were unique and interesting. I definitely would say if I were to do a longer episode, I would try to take some of the data of like umpires this season and how it's not been great for a lot of the umpires and their calls. They've been missing big calls throughout the season. And I think based on my conclusion that before we get into it is I think this would be a great tool to have. And I have a Chris Bryant quote buried inside of this, of course. And I think it'll pretty much sum up what I feel is, if they have one more thing to kind of help make the game feel like the best outcome happened, why not use every single thing at your disposal? That's going to
Right.
be my thesis going into this.
That's kind of where I'm at too, because I know very little about what's going on, but they seem to have like a buzzer in their pocket where they'll still have they'll still be allowed to make the call, but if they make the wrong call, they can fix it, is what it sounds like.
Well, let me fully explain it then, so
All
we don't
right.
have to guess.
Hit me with it.
So at first, I want to set this scene up for you. I want to set up this expectation for you. The pitcher's mound is 60 feet 6 inches away from the plate, which
Everybody
means,
knows that.
well, and to take that a step further, that would mean if a 95-mile-per-hour fastball is traveling 139 feet per second, which means it takes about 0.425 seconds for it to reach the plate. So I think taking that into account, understanding why being an umpire is such a tough job, because again, you have 0.425 of a second to make a decision and to like see a thing happen and make a decision. So I think taking that into account, I'm not giving leeway to every umpire to be like, well, it's such a quick amount of time. Of course you're going to make mistakes. But I think if you had to make a bunch of decisions throughout an entire 3 hour game, that the play that you're making a call on was based on less than half a second, I think it could be understandable that you would mess some up. That is, I guess, what I'll give the umpires a little bit of leeway on to start.
Yeah, because I also know that it's pretty difficult. Like when you see it, it's on the bottom, say it's on the bottom low corner, low and outside that little, and it barely touches the line, the imaginary line that the umpire cannot see. You know what I'm saying? Like I could see how those borderline pitches go either way, but there are some that are like clearly outside. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, big
Like
time.
no plate whatsoever. And those are the ones where it's like, man, if you could adjust that, that'd be great.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll jump into it. So in early 2019, Major League Baseball announced a partnership with the Atlantic League of Professional Baseball, which is a non-affiliated league, to test the automated balls and strike system. Uh, it was used in 11 AAA stadiums last year and was expanded to 30 stadiums this season. The Pacific Coast League has been using it since opening day, and the International League has been using it since April 25th. Now, here's how it works. The strike zone extends 19 inches wide at the middle of home plate, the middle point of home plate, including an inch off either edge. Home plate is 17 inches wide as a reference. The top and bottom edges of the strike zone are based on specific percentages of the batter's height. The size of the automated zone, MLB said, is similar to the major league zone. Importantly, though, if any part of the ball even nicks the zone, the pitch is called a strike. So kind of going back to what you just said, like there's so many things that seem like they're on the edge, they're on the knot. If it nicks even the edge of it, it will be counted a strike. Now, I just want to show, as I mentioned, the strike zone, horizontal up and down, the horizontal part of it is based on your the height. So just to give you a little bit of context, this image I think is amazing. It's based off top 51 and bottom 27% of batters' height. So they know going up, as an example here, is Jose Altuve, 5'7", so that the top of his strike zone is at 2 feet 10 inches and the bottom is at 1 foot 6 inches. And then cut to Aaron Judge, who is a whole foot taller than him. So that's how they set up with the computers the automatic balls and strike zone. So that is just to get us started.
So is it like this might be too random of a question? Do they know how to adjust this automatically in their
We're
system
gonna
because they have the height of the player listed each single time?
Yeah, we're gonna we'll get into that as we keep
Okay.
going, but I wanted to give a brief description. And even more, taking a step back, the technology they're going to be used is called the Hawkeye technology. It's actually used in tennis for determining if a ball is in or out. How this works in tennis is the line calling system uses multiple camera angles to trace the tennis ball's trajectory. Hawkeye uses 6 or more computers linked to television cameras situated around the court. The computers process the video in real time and they track the path of the ball on each camera. These 6 separate views are then combined to produce an accurate 3D representation of the path of the ball. And and then they show it on the screen afterwards.
So
It
so
was
they're playing tennis in the year 3025 then. It sounds like this is some futuristic shit right here.
Yeah, so the technology Hawkeye Innovations was founded by Dr. Paul Hawkins in 1999. And he developed optical tracking systems that are used in 65 countries and over 20 sports, including cricket, tennis, and soccer. So,
That's wild.
cricket and tennis and soccer are actually the first sports that were utilizing this. In 2006, the U.S. Open was the first Grand Slam to use the Hawkeye system to allow challenges, which we'll get to challenges later for how it's in baseball. But I did want to point this out since I was on the topic of it. In tennis, players have said they instinctively know when a ball is in or out. Though based on their use of the review system, the evidence has not been conclusive. One analysis of the player challenges have been that they were correct only 46% of the time. So if you've seen a tennis match, they call for a challenge. They're right less than half of the time.
Is that with the technology or
So that's
with the
with the
judges the way it
technology.
is? Okay.
So if today in a tournament, hypothetically, a tennis tournament, if someone would be like, I'd like to challenge if that was in or out, the players are only right less than half the time when they're making the
Oh, the
call.
players are only based
Yeah.
on what they think compared to what actually happened.
Exactly. So
Okay. So
yeah,
the machine is still accurate. I got a little
correct.
confused.
Yeah, sorry. So mechanical systems also made Atlantic League games shorter by 9 minutes, according to Major League Baseball data. So less time for the pitcher or the umpire to have to make a decision. Boom, keep it moving. Here, our boy right here went on rehab. Chris Bryant said, I'm not totally against it. Umpires want to get their calls right. They're not out here to try to influence the game one way or the other. If they have a tool at their advantage to make every call right, that's great. So, one early area of feedback was the height of the strike zone, and a second was the reliability of the call in the umpire's ear. We're going to start with the height. So, it uses default strike zones based on the player's height, like we talked about. But originally, when they first started rolling this out, it was a little too tall. So that was one major change that they instituted in AAA. It's been narrowed from 19 to 17 inches, which is the exact width of the plate. So at first it was a little big, so they brought it in a little bit. This is like a fluid system too. MLB made that change after seeing an elevated number of strikeouts called in ABS games compared to non-ABS games. They adjusted the size and the shape of the strike zone midway through last season, and the league eliminated 3.5 inches off the top of the strike zone and widened it by 2 inches on the side of the plate, and changed where players or where pitchers were registered from the front of the plate. So another way that this is tracking it, and I'm going to get into the brief science of it, is that they can actually track almost where the pitch is going to go based on where the ball is released by the pitcher. Like they have the science so down that once the pitcher lets go of the ball, for most of the situations, they kind of already know where it's going to go as soon as it's released from the pitcher's hand. Major League Baseball works with Washington State University's Sports Science Lab to independently measure pitch tracking accuracy in every major league ballpark. This is something they've done for years already. So when you watch like on TV, those like the strike zone thing and how they have it like lit up on your screen, that's their technology. Major League Baseball contracts Washington State University to perform ground truth testing at every Major League Baseball stadium. A ground truth test is designed to precisely identify the position of a baseball during a trajectory event, such as a plate crossing or a pitch release. The ground truth reference is the standard by which they evaluate the accuracy and precision of in-stadia tracking systems. So that was just me in a fancy way of saying that's why it's on your screen the way it is, because of the Washington State University.
Okay, so they've been doing this. They've been compiling a lot of data for a long time now.
Yeah, and if I were to really dive into like more of the in-depth science of it, we could go into like they have lined up all these different ways to track the ball and like the arc of it, and that's probably the most difficult part for this is the arc of a ball one way or the other. It can be a little difficult for the machine to kind of track, because that's why they changed the pitch being registered from the front of the plate to the middle of it because of the arc of the pitch.
Okay.
So again, this is new. They're trying it out in an interview with the Atlantic while they were playing inter-squad games. Cleveland Guardians manager Terry Francona said, the technology that we had, the strike zone's just not good. You throw a curveball and it could bounce, and it's called a strike. There are going to be a lot of ejections. I think east and west, they're really good, but up and down, it's got some work to do because all it has to do is touch part of the plate. And who would you be mad at? They asked Terry Francona if it wasn't accurate. Quote, a computer. And I'd kick its ass too. Can you imagine charging the plate with a computer in your hand? So I thought that was hilarious.
Terry wants to fight. He's ready, man. He's ready to fight these robot overlords. It sounds like that's hilarious.
A minor league manager from the St. Paul Stingers. St. Paul Saints. Said, quote, nobody so they're actively using this. Nobody complains about anything anymore with the strike zone because there's nothing to complain about. He said that after his first series, the so-called robo ump, you take that as good and bad. It's kind of entertaining to watch a guy argue. So I think that's kind of funny.
Right. The guy's like, well, we got all this data. There's all these cameras, all these 3D, futuristic angles. It's like, what, you think it's wrong?
Yeah. You think you're smarter than 5,000 computers that are analyzing this?
With your primitive human brain? Come on now.
Yeah, so they're adjusting it. It's a fluid thing to kind of answer your question earlier. They're toying with it as it goes. The other thing I mentioned was the reliability of the call in the umpire's ear. And how do they relay the info, Eric? Well,
it's a great question, Eric.
This is so funny. So originally they had a walkie-talkie system.
Ooh.
Because it's like there's cameras that go to like an Ethernet thing that go to like a connector that processes the information and spits out the result. So originally they had a walkie-talkie system, but there was a delay. So the delay was so significant that they were like, we need a quicker way to do this. So next, they used an AirPod wireless earbuds, so the umpires didn't need to be wired up to a device, and they leveraged the iPhone's browser and create a simple browser application that listened to the message broadcasted by this system upon receipt. So the appropriate call would play in the umpire's ear. This removed the walkie-talkie transmission delay, and while overall system performance did improve, there were still intermittent delays of 1 or 2 seconds for the umpires to hear the call. Now, do you think it would be feasible to have a bunch of umpires with AirPods in their ear the entire game? Yes or no?
I'm going to go with no, because my AirPods don't last for more than 45 minutes without the battery dying.
Well, not only is that a problem, but umpires voice their concerns over earbuds falling out of their ears when removing their masks or becoming gradually unseated from the ear during play due to sweat, movement, etc. So
these are just the standard edition AirPods.
Just your standard come in the box when you buy the phone.
Man, I don't want to wear those for 3.5 hours under any circumstances.
Well, due to the feedback, they went back to wired earpieces from iPhones with multiple different sizes for the earbud sleeves to better fit each umpire's ear. So they have plugged-in headphones, and they developed an app. So it's not like through an iPhone browser. There's an actual app that the umpires use. So they're wired up with iPhones, with wired headphones, like going up through their thing like you're trying to illegally listen to music in high school. Like that's how I did it. So it's funny that that's how they're going to be making balls and strikes. So that's kind of the most like basic science I wanted to kind of put down of how it's run, how it's being relayed. Here's how it's being implemented right now in the minors. So for all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday games, the umpires are in charge of calling balls and strikes, but pitchers and catchers have the ability to challenge the call. Now, this is what I thought was the most interesting part about it. The challenge must be made immediately following the pitch, and players and coaches on the bench cannot assist in that decision at all.
Who has to make the call? The hitter?
The hitter, the pitcher, or the catcher.
Okay. Oh, the
And
catcher is getting some power here.
that's gonna come up in a second, actually. In fact, umpires can nullify a challenge if they feel the challenger has been helped by the bench. And when a challenge is made, the video of the pitch will be played on the scoreboard to either confirm or change the ball strike
Oh,
call.
they're gonna go with a video. They're not just gonna go with the response from the robo umpire,
The response to
or
the
is
robo
it?
umpire
Is
is the
that what they're?
video.
Is that what
Yeah,
they're challenging?
their challenge is the call being made by the human
The
umpire,
human
but they're
umpire. Okay.
showing what they're showing you the work of what the robo umpire is calling. So again, going back to tennis, when they challenge like an in or out, they actually
Show the video.
show the video of it bouncing and then the in or out in the stadium. So it's not just
Okay.
you're taking the word for the line judge who's like, no, I listened. They said it's in. Like you physically get to see what they're making the final decision on.
Does it say how many of these challenges the teams get per game?
Wow, Eric, are you reading along with me? Because that is exactly what I was going to say next. Each team will have 3 challenges per game, and if the player wins their challenge and the call is overturned, the team keeps their amount of challenges. If the
Okay.
team loses the challenge, the team loses one of their 3 attempts. A team cannot change any pitches in a game where they have failed on 3 challenges. The challenge system is not available for all day games played Tuesday to Thursday, and the umpire immediately determines if it's a pitch is a ball or the strike. The hears the call in the earpiece and relays the call to the players and fans. So Tuesday through Thursday, it's strictly just he hears and he says it. But Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is when they can challenge the calls.
This sounds very convoluted. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think part of it was
Very inconsistent.
they didn't want a whole series to be determined by a robot. So they wanted it to
Okay.
have a little bit of like balance with that.
So
Uh,
this has been even showing shorter games then still?
the one stat I found reading in one of the articles said the game got shorter by 9 minutes. So
That's interesting because it
yeah,
sounds like they're adding more review time to it.
yeah, I
Or
think
whatever.
maybe that
Who
accounts to like
knows?
the few times during a game where like a manager storms out and like
Yeah,
screams at them, and instead it's like Terry Francona said, "What are you gonna do? Yell at a computer screen?"
very good. I
Now,
guess
here's one of the things that I think was really interesting about this change in the rule. With when they have full automatic balls and strikes, so no challenges, but just the computers telling you what's what, it really changes some catchers' way that they play. So with the full automated balls and strikes, there's no need for catchers to frame pitches in a way that preserves or steals a strike. So this ESPN article I read noted that it changes how catchers will play defensively. At the winter meeting, MLB managers were also briefed on the ongoing efforts to shape the strike zone in a way that is more conducive for action. So in the season ahead, so in the one we're in, there'll be a lot more focus on lowering the top of the strike zone, an area in which many pitchers have contributed to the record rate of strikeouts, and calling strikes within the 17-inch horizontal plane above the plate. So basically, they're very aware that sometimes pitches that are higher up get called strikes that are more incorrect than other places on the plate is kind of what their conclusion was.
mm-hmm.
So again, they're trying to make sure it's a fluid thing, but again, there's a whole like group of catchers that are known for being like great at framing it so they can steal a call or two. This will basically eliminate, that kind of talent that people have.
Right. Well, that's also kind of something that, like, personally, I don't think it's that fun to watch. Like, it's when you see a catcher that frames a call and it's clearly a bad pitch and it gets called a strike because of the frame job, I still get mad about that. It's like, well, fuck that catcher. Like, he just tricked the umpire. Like, you know what I'm saying? That ball was below the zone and he swooped it up. And I know it's a talent that they utilize, but that's one that upsets me. So if that goes away, I wouldn't miss it at all.
Well, there you go. Um, So talking a little bit more about what players have said about it, Red Sox infield Nick York said it's a lot of fun with the pitch challenge. It gets everyone into it after someone challenge it. Everyone is like, "Ooh!" after they see the pitch. I think
Oh,
it's pretty fun, so I'm a fan of it.
okay. Just getting more people, more engagement, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, people love seeing because the nice thing about the computer is there's no subjectivity to it. Like you were just saying, like it's one thing if like a catcher tricks an umpire and that's the call. It's completely different when we have like analytical 100% data to find out if that call is right, to see if the challenge was like a smart thing to do, knowing you only have three of them. So it does add another like, ooh, is it will they, won't they kind of be
Right,
right
because that
aspect.
is like an entertaining aspect of like of the play reviews now currently. Like if it's a close tag at second base on a steal or something like that, like the crowd will be paying attention and they'll be cheering or booing depending on what they think is going on and stuff. So I guess that does bring a level of engagement that you don't really think about.
Now you were mentioning you asked who can make these calls, right? The Yankees minor league manager Rachel Balkovec pointed out that it does add an element of strategy. They said, "quote Some organizations let anyone who has the right to challenge pitcher, batter, catcher challenge, but the minor league is saying our organization will only let the catcher challenge because the pitcher and the batter they run a little too hot." So you can imagine if you're a pitcher being like, no, that was my pitch. It was a good pitch. It deserves to be a strike. Just burning through a challenge
Okay,
incorrectly.
like your Max Scherzer per se, somebody like that,
Yeah.
somebody with a bit of an ego on him.
Or could you imagine like Javi Baez being like, no, that pitch I just swung at, I want to challenge it because I think it, or you know what I mean? Like
Can't
they
take
just,
those swings. You can't take those swings back, Javi.
yeah. So, it kind of becomes a thing where I think that's a good strategy of being like our only player that's allowed to do as the catcher. He has the best view of it to be like, is this accurate or not? So I think that's a really good that might be a strategy that some teams utilize. Like only the batter's allowed to use it since it influences their at bat. But I also think it could be tough because there's, nine batters. Oh, my cat's in the way. There's nine batters, and that could you're so subjective from batter to batter, whereas the catcher for the most part's in the whole game. They have a great vision of like what's a thing. So that'll be really cool to see like who's allowed to use the challenges. In football they say like timeouts in the game are for the offense, not for the defense. And I feel like this is kind of a similar thing. There will be like an unspoken rule about it with certain squads.
Right, because you could certainly see somebody, like somebody's getting a hot head being in this pit situation to making the call, and then kind of blowing it later down the road for the rest of the game or something like that. So that their
Exactly. Yeah.
emotions are getting the best of them.
You get a little ego going to you of like, dude, I have been nailing this pitch all day. That one is definitely it. I want to be out of this inning. And then, you're just so
Right, like
biased.
the bases are loaded. It's a full count situation, something like that.
Yeah. So to go with the challenges in the 2022 season at the Salt River Rafters with their team and teams they played, there had been a total of 15 games with the system in place of challenges with an average of 4.4 challenges per game. So, meaning not everybody's used their full challenges. 2.47 were called by challenges were called by hitters, and 1.93 by the defense had been made. Um, and only a third of the challenges had been successful. Hitters had actually been more accurate with their challenges at 35%, while pitchers and catchers had only been right 31%. Now, I feel like there's so many different things that could come to that conclusion, how and when it's being implemented, and so on and so forth. But that's just the statistics we have as of right now is that hitters have been more accurate with their challenges than pitchers and catchers.
Okay, well that's good.
Yeah. Um, a day before Major League Baseball season started this year, with all the other rule changes they've done, Major League Commissioner Rob Manfred said the automated balls and strike system is, quote, the next big one on the agenda. He said he did want to give it a few years for the other rules to kind of cool off, but it becomes a thing where the players almost dictate how quick the rules are implemented. So, for example, the pitch com was something they just wanted to try in spring training, and so many pitchers liked it that they ended up keeping it and implementing it into this season.
Okay, so is there a time frame then for when this might show up?
Not really,
Okay,
because the season still has to end. So I think they're gonna.
right.
That's a lot of stuff to hash out.
A big maybe for next year.
Yeah. So something I'm gonna read this one out. Another quote from Rob Manfred. Umpires are really skilled and dramatically more consistent than 15 years ago as a result of the application of technology in their training process. Literally after every game, they get an email with the pitches they missed. They must log in and look at the ones they missed, and then there's commentary about how they missed it and why they missed it. But what they call,
Hmm.
the rule book strike zone, a rectangle above the middle of the plate, umpires actually call it an oval. So they don't call that the inside corner and the outside corner. There's a reason they don't call it, because you can't hit those pitches. So while they have the technology, it's kind of right, kind of accurate. There are issues that we need to work through before it's ready for prime time. In an article in March 29th, 2023, Rob Manfred said, I think there's more sentiment among the group that we had a lot of changes here. We ought to let the dust settle. There are clearly unresolved operational issues with respect to ABS despite all the testing. We still have some things unresolved. So the short answer is I don't know what's going to happen moving forward. I'm trying to get through this year's changes. We have some work to do, I think.
Hmm. And Terry Francona's like, we will fight these robots. I am ready.
I will kill the machines. They are going to be dead to me. Please, Terminator, baseball Terminator is
He's
here.
retiring from his role as a management to full time fight these
Yeah,
robots.
exactly. So that's my episode rundown about automated balls and strikes. Again, they're testing out in the minor leagues now for its second season amongst non-affiliated professional squads, and yeah, it's a work in progress, but ultimately, like, it's like instant review with football and being able to have a challenge flag. Like, everyone wants accurate conclusions to be made during games, and I think that it's better to take the time to have these like systems in place rather than like the morning after just complain all day about, like, well, my team would have won but they blew X call and that ruined the
Right.
whole game.
Well,
Like,
I've seen a
that's
couple
not
of
how
big,
sports
yeah.
always work,
I've
like
seen a couple of big moments lately get ruined by the wrong call. And it's just like, there's got to be a way to put this to an end. But it is what it is still. So,
so might probably not going to be implemented next year, but it's something down the line that they're certainly looking into. And yeah, that's a very basic overlay of how it's going to be functioning.
well, that's good. I mean, that's more than I knew about it. So that's a lot of good takeaways. It does make you wonder, with all this automation going on. How many years do you think it'll be before there's just robot baseball teams playing against each other? How about MIT versus Stanford? They already got the little, those little walk-in robots. Put a little bat on them, see if they can throw a ball.
Yeah, Boston Dynamics.
Turn too. Yeah. See if we can
Yeah,
get DraftKings in on this so we can bet on robot baseball. Let's go.
yeah, I think it's so it'll be really interesting that because again, the more technology and the more you know about these things, like, they have chips in the footballs now, so they know like every detail. Statcast can tell you how far Trevor Bauer threw the ball, at what trajectory and velocity he threw it out of the stadium out of anger. Like, the more technology and like numbers they have, I think it's cooler. So I'm definitely pro this. I like that they're being very hyper aware of all of the the challenges that, or things that, and feedback from the players as it's going to kind of make this be the most effective system they can possibly make it.
Oh yeah, no, I after everything you said, I have a lot of faith that they're going to figure this out, and I really do think it's a matter of time before this gets implemented. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you see it during spring training next year,
Yeah.
just to get the players used to it. So,
So when you see, I'm already waiting for next year when people are like, umpires have iPods in. What song are they listening to? Like, that's
oh
already
yeah,
the meme I'm waiting for.
it's fucking Kesha every time, dude.
Well, this has been our episode about automated balls and strikes, robot umpires, whatever you want to call it. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, we're gonna, hopefully keep doing more one-off episodes about specific topics while talking about the season. And yeah, if you have any things you want us to dive into, let us know.
Yep, get at us.
Get at us. Well, thanks for listening. I'm Tyler. That's Eric.
It's me, baby.